My name is Andrew Wiley, and I am an independent author. And I have just published my debut novel, Weird Space, which is a story, an action-adventure, sci-fi fantasy story about a group of kids that find a girl from another dimension, and they have to help her uncover a secret weapon that she can take back to defeat an evil overlord. Yeah, Weird Space was really inspired by, I would say, a period between 1980 and the early 90s, where there were a lot of stories about kid empowerment. So things like The Goonies, movies like Red Dawn, I would say even E.T., where you had kids having to, they were the heroes and they were the ones in danger, and it was up to them to solve the problems. And so I was always fascinated with kids being given adult responsibilities and where the adults really weren't allowed to help. But it was also inspired, I would say, by some literature like Peter Pan or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where you had the normal world and then you had another world that the characters would enter into and they would have to navigate. So Weird Space is 30 years, it's been 30 years in the making. It started when I was a kid because I was finding ways to cope with being a terrible student in school. And I think also having a lot of fears. I was a really anxious kid at different points. I was really afraid of growing up. I was afraid of the unknown, afraid of failure, and afraid of death. And obviously, I think a lot of people are, but I tended to be pretty preoccupied with it. And so the way I dealt with all of that was by imagining myself in stories and my friends and trying to kind of put us in a place where I could conquer these things. And maybe they manifested in the form of monsters or bad guys or whatever it was. And there I could confront them. Whereas in the real world, I felt powerless, I think. And so Weird Space is an amalgam of all of that. My fears, what excited me, what I cared about, what I wished life would be. And to the point where I think at times as a kid, I even believed it was real. And would tell my friends, and we would all meet in the woods, and I would tell them these short stories, and I would put them in the stories, and found that I also loved having an audience, and I loved that meeting of the minds where you could tell someone was as invested in the story as you, and there was kind of a magical connection. And so I think that's what drove me as a kid to form this particular story. My author's journey has been a long one, so I've been writing for about 20 years, trying to traditionally publish this and other novels. And I finally got to a point last year in 2023 where I decided that I'd collected enough rejection notices. I wasn't getting any real feedback from agents or publishers. I didn't know why they were rejecting the stories that I was working on. And I thought, I need to take a chance. I need to step out. And I also feel like there's this wonderful option now in indie publishing where you can create your own cover. You can have your book copy edited. You have platforms to put your book, to disseminate your book, and you can hear directly from readers. I think that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to hear from people actually reading the story and to know whether I had arrived or not through an agent who was trying to think of how to sell my book. And so I decided to take that step and indie publish. And I think it also is easier now because I think self-publishing used to be this idea that you would order 1,000 books and have them in your garage and you'd be desperately trying to sell them, whereas now they have print on demand. So I don't do anything. I put the book up on something like Amazon. Somebody orders it, it's printed and sent to them, and I just see through metrics that somebody's ordered the book. So it's a very easy process now. Yeah, so Weird Space, because it's been a lifelong thing, it's taken many forms over time. So I wrote the first version in first grade. It was 10 pages long and had pictures and made no sense. And then when I was 11, I sat in my room for a summer and I wrote it by hand in several 3-ring binders. And that actually had more structure to it, but still is all over the place. And so after that, there was a very long period where I tried different things. I tried writing it as a movie. I tried writing it in short story form. I tried the novel again, and I couldn't make it work. And it was only at the start of the pandemic where suddenly we were all closed in. And unfortunately for a lot of writers, I think this was great news. Oh, you're telling me I'm going to be shut in and I'm going to have nowhere to go. I'm going to write a novel. And a lot of people did write novels during the pandemic. So the pandemic really gave me a chance to sit with the idea and think about how it might work. And then I remember one night I woke up, it was early in the morning, it was around 4 a.m. I woke up from a dream, and it was all of a sudden the story made sense. And I got up out of bed, and I remember distinctly running downstairs to my office, and I just started writing. And by the time the sun came up, I had a 5 or 6 page treatment where the story was laid out. And I felt like for the first time in 25 to 30 years, I knew how it should be. But from that point on, it was a 3-year process and 14 or 15 revisions to get the story where I really wanted it to be. When I started the first book, I didn't know that it would be a trilogy, but it ended up ending on a cliffhanger. And I didn't know that at first. I tend to write kind of by the seat of my pants. Like they call them pantsers, where you write and you don't always know where it's going, And so I got to the end and I thought, nope, this needs 2 more books. Like I actually feel like the characters, the way they're arcing, the way the conflict is working, the way the world is expanding, I feel like it actually could fit well in a trilogy. And so, yeah, it changed my whole outlook on where I could take the story. So I'm currently working on the sequel, and I've outlined the 3rd story. So we'll see where it goes. Every day, it's one day at a time. I'm one of those people who always wanted to be an author. And because I had such a difficult time in my childhood with school, and I think just fitting in at times in general, story is the only thing that really made sense to me. My dad read us incredible, novels when we were kids, like Les Miserables and, Watership Down and The Lord of the Rings. So I grew up watching great films, hearing great stories, seeing artwork everywhere. So I think it was what made sense to me. It was how I communicated, and I loved what I felt when I read something. And I could feel what the characters were feeling. And so to me, it was magic. And I wanted to create that magic. I didn't just want to be a recipient. I wanted to be somebody actually creating it. So I've always wanted to be an author. What I hope readers take away is, and young readers in particular, is a sense in which I want them to feel a sense that they can step out into what scares them. That you don't have to run away. That you don't have to look to something better. You're already living an incredible life. You just may not know it. That you in and of yourself are a miracle. And whatever it is that scares you in that unknown, and we're all scared of something, you will never grow more than when you take that thing on. And that you're not alone when you take that thing on. There are always people, I think for most of us at least, around you that are willing to walk with you in that. And so Weird Space is a story of friendship and about kids coming together and walking through really scary things. Now, these are like actual scary monsters coming after them, but they're supposed to represent the scary things that we all face. And so that's what I hope. I also hope that, and I'm seeing this in reviews and hearing from readers, it's bringing young and old readers together. So a lot of parents are reading it with their kids because the parents are talking about what it was like for them to be kids, for them to face these things. And it's been facilitating what seems like some really cool conversations. And they have this to relate with each other now. So that's been very cool. My favorite part of the writing process by far, and I actually feel bad for people who don't write because of this, is the discovery process. So when I'm writing at 5 a.m, which is what I do because I have a family, I have a full-time job, lots going on, I will get up an hour and a half before everybody else. And that's my writing time every morning. I'm religious about, Monday through Sunday, vacations, doctor's offices, wherever I am, I'm going to sit and I'm going to get that writing in. Because what I've found is that with that continuity comes discovery. And I'll be writing, I'll have no idea where it's going, and suddenly a character will turn to me and say, this is why I'm here. This is what's going on right now. There have been things revealed to me, like in Weird Space, there's a really big reveal that I had no idea about when I started the story. And it made the whole story change. And it gave it depth, and it gave it a shocking reveal that I discovered with the characters. And that is truly a moment where you're in awe. You're absolutely in awe of what's happening. You don't feel like you're doing it. It feels like it's coming from somewhere else. It feels like uncovering some new dinosaur or some creature or some place, in the world, and it is truly a magical experience.
It's like the story's out there somewhere, you just gotta find it.
Yeah, you've been given the gift of uncovering it, but it's there.